All right, so first let's talk about Justin Gaethje's performance against Fiziev over the weekend. Justin Gaethje did a phenomenal job of withstanding the storm that Fiziev was able to bring. Fiziev clearly had the speed advantage, but there seems to be a trend when it comes to Justin Gaethje's performances. Justin Gaethje is extremely durable. He hits extremely hard and he brings a lot of pressure. He just seems to never go away. No matter what you throw at him, no matter how hard you hit him, he's usually still standing there. And that's kind of what we saw over the weekend. We saw that Justin Gaethje was able to withstand the speed that Fiziev was bringing to the table. Fiziev was hitting Justin Gaethje with some good shots, and Justin Gaethje just would not go away. He kept hitting Fiziev. He kept coming, and ultimately he did more damage. And I think that is what won Justin Gaethje the fight. The damage, the pressure, and he just stood in the fight and just landed way more significant strikes. Justin Gaethje is a problem for basically anybody he fights. Now, after that impressive performance, there's been a little bit of talk happening of a rematch between Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier. Now, the first time these gentlemen fought was in 2018, I believe, and it was a banger of a fight. Dustin Poirier, he also hits hard. He's one of the harder hitters in the 155 division. And I think, them fighting again is going to be another bomb matchup. I don't think we're going to see of a different, much of a different take between these two. I think they're both going to go in there, basically stand and bang and see who's going to put who out first. And in my opinion, I do believe Dustin Poirier, if you look at the history of how they fight, he's kind of a bad matchup for Justin Gaethje. He hits hard. He's a little bit more finesse when it comes to his striking. It's a little cleaner when it comes to strikes. But it was a huge back and forth fight between the two the first time they fought. And Justin Gaethje could have easily gotten Dustin Poirier out, just as simple as Dustin Poirier did to Justin Gaethje in the fourth round. So I think that's a great matchup, and it's kind of a title elimination match. And if you compare those two against Magnichev, the current champion, I think Justin Gaethje has a bit of a better, honestly, a bit of a better take, a bit of a better chance when going against Magnichev. I think his wrestling could play a role, at least as far as defending takedowns, because Justin Gaethje isn't really known to go for a takedown, wrestler style, and I don't expect him to do that against Magnichev. I expect him to try to punch Magnichev in the mouth, as I would Dustin Poirier, and try to get him out that way. And I think the better person to do that is Justin Gaethje. I think Dustin Poirier typically has a harder time when it comes to grapplers, either jiu-jitsu or wrestler. They just have to be extremely elite at it. And as we all know, Magnichev is elite at wrestling. And so I think it can be a bit of a triangle between the three gentlemen. One person can beat one person, the other person can't beat the other, and it just goes in a bit of that triangle. Kind of, we've seen that before from fighters, right? When that Dominic Cruz, Cody Garbrandt, and TJ Dillashaw, it's kind of one of those situations that I think could form if the cards are played correctly. Now, I'm not saying we have that yet, but I'm saying it's something that could form over time. And so if these two were to fight again, me speaking about Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje, you have to look at, I think, the last five fights. You guys know how I work. You have to look at statistics. And let's look at the last five fights between these two, right? Let's look at Justin Gaethje first, right? So in his last five fights, he fought Fiziev. He won. We just saw that. Very impressive fight, as I just explained. Then he lost to Charles Oliveira. He won against Michael Chandler. I remember that. He did really well against Michael Chandler. Lost to Khabib, as everyone did. And he beat Tony Ferguson. So he's been on a win, loss, win, loss, win. So he's been 50-50 lately, which with the opponents that he's been facing, I could see why you'd go 50-50. I could see why you would lose to Khabib and Charles Oliveira. Those are two dangerous opponents, and again, they're kind of that elite, draw of the card when it comes to grappling. And that's a tough matchup. The grapplers have been tough matchups in the UFC lately, especially lately. I think grapplers have always been tough matchups, but we're starting to see wrestlers and jiu-jitsu practitioners of elite levels starting to really develop striking, and that's becoming quite dangerous. It's becoming quite dangerous. And so Justin Gaethje's record for the last 5 fights, I don't really knock it. I think it's still a really solid record, beating Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, and Fiziev. Those are three really solid opponents. Now, if we look at Dustin Poirier has fought Michael Chandler. He beat Michael Chandler. He also lost to Charles Oliveira. He got choked out by Charles. Then he beat Conor twice, and he beat Dan Hooker. Now, I think Dustin Poirier's last 5 fights have been slightly different, just because he's had those 2 fights with Conor, and so he has kind of a double match that he kind of handily was going to win both. In my opinion, I had Dustin Poirier beating Conor in both of those fights, and Charles Oliveira he was a bad matchup for all of them besides Magnichev, and so we also can't forget about Charles Oliveira being in that mix. He's still a dangerous opponent. I think he still has a chance of being a champion as well. And so if we compare these two gentlemen's five fights, I think it's still a very even matchup. I don't think either one has really waned when it comes to their ability to perform. I think they're both right around where they were when they first fought, and I think it's going to be a nice matchup. If I had to choose between the two, I would probably go with Dustin Poirier again. But very solid matchup as it was the first time. And don't be surprised if you see Justin Gaethje with his hand raised for this possible upcoming title elimination. There's a lot of players in the 155 division right now, and so I think we're going to see a lot of things, in the mix of things, and we'll see what happens. So comment down below what you guys think about this matchup. Do you see any other possible matchups? Do you see a better matchup for Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier? And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.